Welcome back to Newsday. Let's bring in resident senior fellow at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, David Wroe. David, I want to get your thoughts on that massive military parade, your overall reaction to what you saw, the choreography, the show of power, the presence of leaders past and present, including Daniel Andrews, the former Victorian Premier.
Sure. No, I mean, it's a real display of power, that's for sure, surrounded by fellow autocrats in most cases, not obviously all. It reminds me of an old Soviet joke that the future is certain, it's the past that keeps changing all of the time. The point being that autocrats love using history and misusing history in order to serve their present-day political interests. And I think that's what we're seeing here. It's Xi Jinping's way of saying we are the true centre of modern international order, while the West fades in influence and relevance. So he's exaggerating the role of Chinese communists in defeating imperialist Japan during World War II. He's elevating Japanese aggression and reminding everybody of that. And we saw that through the Chinese ambassador's op-ed in the Financial Review just this week. It's a way of trying to undermine modern-day Japanese relationships, which of course are a problem for China, including with countries like Australia. And he's using it to try and bolster his claims over Taiwan as well, which he argues should have flowed to the Chinese communists at the end of World War II. And just quickly, Donald Trump is unfortunately not helping with his erratic foreign policy and his relative indifference to global rules and cooperation. But my hope is that the rest of the world, particularly the Global South, I think, who are the true audience for this message, are recognising that any international
When you talk
order,
about the Global South, can you explain?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, it's a term. I mean, it's not a great term, but we're talking mainly about countries like Brazil, South Africa, other members of the BRICS, but also Southeast Asia as well. So countries that are still developing, that are not particularly aligned with the United States, for instance, but rather have a diverse set of strategic interests.
And so, what's the message to the likes of Southeast Asia, which incidentally did have a pretty large presence at that event, including the Indonesian president, Prabowo. He's got massive protests to deal with at home. He still made it to Beijing.
Interesting point. The intended message is, we are the rule-setting global power now. We are the centre of the modern international order. So you should be aligning yourself with us, not with that crazy guy over there in the Oval Office. I hope that what they do recognise, though, is that any order that centres around the likes of Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Masoud Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, is actually a future global disorder in which might makes right. So today it's Ukraine, tomorrow it's Taiwan. Who's going to be next beyond that?
When you look at those images, there are amazing images there with Xi and the North Korean dictator there, the Putin, the Russian leaders obviously still prosecuting that illegal war against Ukraine. But then further to that, this is straight off the back of a major summit which Narendra Modi attended, the Indian president, and that to me is as significant as anything else, because we've been trying, when I say we've, this Australia, Japan, United States, through the Quad, trying to secure India into our orbit. Now, it looks like the events recently have pushed India back towards the likes of Russia and China.
Yeah, and events being, in particular, obviously, the blow-up between Trump and Modi, Trump's punitive tariffs against India, and I think Trump's claim of solving de-escalating the conflict between India and Pakistan earlier in the year, that seems to have really annoyed the Indian government. All of that is a problem. It was not a great look that Modi attended that SCO meeting and was seen in such sort of close friendly relations with Xi and Putin. It's good that he didn't stay for the military parade. I think we shouldn't panic and think that India and China are about to become BFFs for the foreseeable future because they actually do still have a lot of structural differences. India is very pragmatic in its international relations. It's essentially a sort of geopolitical omnivore. It's happy to take, a bit of what it can get from other relationships. The hope was that the Quad and other, the stronger bilateral relations with other Indo-Pacific democracies would gradually bring India more into alignment with us as much as possible so that they would help balance China's rising power in the Indo-Pacific, and that's been as absolutely crucial in order to constrain China's ambitions. If that's at peril, then we have problems.
As a parliament, we've got a couple of weeks now, and then it turns, I think a big part of the focus turns to those international commitments like the Prime Minister, hopefully, the Albanese government's perspective, they're trying to land that meeting with Trump. At the same time, we're seeing a push from the former Foreign Minister Maurice Payne, other senior figures like General Mattis of the United States, arguing the case not to abandon AUKUS. Is there really a push to abandon AUKUS? We're hearing about the review from Elbridge Colby and the Pentagon, but are they seriously going to scrap the whole thing?
I still think it's unlikely. It was a very timely piece that Maurice Payne, Jim Mattis and a couple of others wrote in Foreign Affairs magazine. It just published overnight Australian time. Elbridge Colby's review, look, from what I understand, the big concern that the Americans have is their submarine industrial base and its capacity to actually put out enough submarines that it's able to sell those 3 to 5 Virginia class, which the AUKUS program depends on. I think Colby genuinely recognises and fears that they simply cannot make enough submarines. So my impression is that was one of the messages that was communicated to Richard Marles when he flew to Washington last week. I mean, I think it was very instructive that Marles felt sufficiently compelled to miss a sitting week and dash over to Washington to have those meetings. It looks very much as though the Australian government is concerned. My understanding is that Australia's relatively insufficient defence spending is one issue that the Americans have. The other one is their submarine output. I don't think the Americans want to scrap AUKUS. I think pieces like the one that Maurice and Jim and others wrote overnight was very much aimed at persuading the Americans that it is in their interests to pursue AUKUS. Yeah. We can back them up in the Indo-Pacific with that submarine capability, but there are concerns.
Okay. David Wroe from ASPI, thank you for your insights.
Thanks, Kieran.